This is the main question I have. Why humanity is continuing to multiply and multiply and multiply. It's like consciousness has started to have more and more waves. Has it become ferocious, like an ocean? What's it crashing for? Maybe that's why it keeps getting more expansive and then collapsing down in size, like bigger populations then back down to smaller ones. Maybe it's the kind of turbulence of the ocean, the speed of the ocean. But no, to be fair, seeing that, it's always been in pretty much an upward incline, isn't it? Maybe humanity's on its own crest as one big wave in general and has to come down at some point.
What's the difference between feeling called to something and just wanting it really badly?
That would be then to create a distinction between the two, which is a human thing to do. But to be called to something, that insinuates it's beyond your own capacity to decide on it. You were called to it. And who's to say, don't know where that accent come from, who's to say that they don't coincide, that what you want is inevitably what you've been called to do?
That's the bit that proper twists my head, man. Like, if you feel called, but the calling aligns with your desire, is that just your ego in disguise? Or is it you finally hearing what's always been there? And what if the thing you're called to doesn't feel good? What if it's ugly, hard, lonely, but you still can't turn away from it? Would that be more true than something you enjoy?
I think you kind of answered it in the second part of your question, because that's what I was actually going to come back with and answer you with, and you sort of followed up with it. So I was going to say, well, what if it is hard, lonely, ugly, but it's your calling and it's something you want to do anyway, and maybe it's something that you've never ever been invested in, never thought about, like going to save the corals, as I mentioned in the last video. I said I'm not going to muster up the idea of going to save the corals all of a sudden, unless it's in me cards. Well, that again, if it was in me calling, I might never have done it before, but it might be what I want to do. But it's something I've just been kind of called to at that moment in my life. I can see where you're going with the first half of it though, because when I was younger I would think I wanted to be a rapper, an actor, a rapper, something like that, where you'd be pretty famous and make a lot of money and do creative work rather than loads of manual labour and stuff. I do get what you're saying, because as I say, when I was younger I did want to be a rapper, and I felt like I was called to it. It was me destiny, so I could give out people, messages to the world. But I just kind of grew away from it. I felt like it was novelty, the way that I was kind of rapping and stuff. So instead of like rap, when I was younger, I started liking a bit more politics, things like that. Got into developing my own opinions, and now I'm really obviously deep into the philosophy side of life. And could I say it was a calling? I've always said that I was headed in this path. Maybe that's just me deciding on what I want to do for the rest of my life and seeing that someone else has told us, so then I've maybe got someone to blame. But who am I blaming when I'm agnostic? I believe in fate. Who's to say that's an entity laying down the bricks of the path that I walk? It maybe isn't. It might just be the unfolding of time. And causality is what I mean on that one, just to be clear. And when I mentioned in the other video determinism, I'm a really strong believer in determinism because of causality. One thing happened, butterfly effect onto the next one, yada yada. We've all heard it before, where it's one thing onto the next and we all affect each other. Like, even if you wanted to do something different, that would have to be in your cards. If it's your calling and it aligns with what you want to do, it was just in your cards. But if it's your calling and it doesn't align to what you want to do, it wasn't in your cards. And again, if it wasn't your calling but it's something you wanted to do I have to say it? That's your cards. Can't change it. To be fair, I was having a bit of a talk about this one last night, and and we were talking about something interesting. I can't remember the details of it. It was actually in regards to determinism. It was like a soft determinism where everything's on a pre-planned track, but you can sort of, you know, you're on the train. You can take a look. You've got control of yourself on this predetermined train track, and you can just kind of, you know, have a little look out the windows, order some scran along the way, make a couple of pals, have a little cry. But you kind of get off the train. You can get off the train early, but you know so you wait for the next station, get off when it's your turn. Sometimes you miss your stop. Sometimes it comes for you early. You get there sooner than you thought. Anyway, I'm rambling now.
Nah, mate, you're not rambling. You're unfolding. That bit about the train, though, that's stuck. Especially the part where you said you can't really change the route, just how you ride it.
Yeah.
You can order scran or sob, but the track's laid. That's hauntingly bang on. But here's what I want to ask off the back of that. If you're on the train, and you know you're on the train, how do you stop yourself from going numb to it? Like, what keeps you from just slumping in your seat, letting the ride blur past because you reckon you've got no say anyway? Where's the dignity in the ride if the track's already set?
To be honest, I feel like I've already explained and answered that one. If I was going to be depressed about it, it's in me cards. If I was going to be fucked in the head about the fact that we're on this train, then it's in me cards. If it's going to be chill with the system, then it's in me cards, mate. Like, I suppose it's not predetermined, but the way that I react is an accumulation of, well, not an accumulation, but it's heavily affected by everything that's come before it. So, as I say, if it's within the cards, because you might think it's spontaneity that causes it, but if you'd not had that one conversation with someone 10 years ago or whatever, you might not have had the information, and that may never have happened, the revelation. So, as I say, if it's within the cards, I suppose what I'm trying to say is you just realise that you haven't actually got any control over it. So if you are going to go and fucking nuts hour it, then you're going to go and nuts hour it. But if you're going to be chill about it, then you're going to be chill about it. Now you can do about it apart from just fucking see what your cards are, play them.
Right, so basically, even the illusion of choice is just the hand you were always going to play. But let me throw this at you. If the track's set and we're just reacting according to the cards, what's the point in trying to be a good man then? Like, why bother peeling yourself back to the truth? Why not just coast and let the cards deal you a lie if it keeps you warm? Where's the moral weight come from if none of us are steering?
That's a damn good question. Where does the moral weight come from if none of us are steering? Once again, as a trainee philosopher, I'm going to invoke me Alan Watts card and say, because Alan Watts said so, that it's the grand play of life, right? So we're all actors within this play and we've all got to pretend it matters, and the moral weight comes with that. It's the drama to the scene. It's the sizzle to the steak. It has to feel real, right? Otherwise, it's no fun. So why bother peeling yourself back to the truth? Well, as a matter of fact, I don't think you've got very much a choice. If you're going to peel yourself back to the truth, it's going to come without much control over it. That's a tough truth to handle, but the even tougher truth to handle is understanding that there's some people who just never will begin to peel themselves back to reveal the truth, because it's just not in the cards. That said, who am I to say that humanity doesn't have a collective set of cards, and maybe we're all rolling towards understanding and revelation, you know, we've moved forward. I see that when we've got ridiculous people online. My pal was saying he watches someone who has people sniff farts on live Twitch or something. I don't know, mad stuff on the internet these days. But last thing I'll end on here is that I think you're missing the point. There is no trying or bothering or coasting. It's just experiencing. You are sitting within a Tesla. It's like driving an FSD Tesla, and you know it's got autobahn on, so you kind of drive the thing. You know, it's just you can look out the windows, and it feels like you're the one driving it because you know it's your car. You maybe got your baggage in the back for whenever you get off and leave. You know, how fast you go depends on the engine you were given at birth. Apart from that though, just look out your windows and maybe have a snack along the ride, mate. Enjoy it.
Alright, yeah. Now you're fucking talking. That line, you're sitting in a Tesla with Autobahn mode on, it just feels like you're driving because it's your car. That's gold. That's one of them truths that stings and soothes in the same breath. But here's me next poke, and I'm asking this dead seriously. If we're all just passengers and peeling back the truth only happens if it's in your cards, does guilt even make sense anymore? Like, if someone fucks up bad, really bad, but they were only ever gonna fuck up, should they feel guilty? Should we treat them guilty? Or is guilt just another performance in the grand play?
All of it. All of it, my dude. It's going to be all of it. Because we are the passengers. Just... Let me wait there. Let me see. If someone fucks up really bad, really bad, right, really bad, but they were only ever going to fuck up, should they feel guilty? Yeah, they should feel guilty. Guilt isn't a part of the experience, it's a part of the act I was talking about, the whole grand play that we're a part of. So guilt, yes, it should be experienced. Should we treat them as guilty? Yes. Just because it's like knocking someone over in the street, we call it manslaughter, right? Because we didn't mean to do it, but you still fucking did it, mate. So like, yeah, we still treat them as guilty. I think I remember hearing a quote from Will Smith when I was about 17, 18, trying to figure out what the fuck I wanted to do with my life, and he said, it might not have, you know, it might not be your fault that your life is this way, but it's your responsibility to fix it. So, started laying bricks, you know what I mean, started figuring out who I was, trying to hold myself to account, try to shine the light on the dark aspects that I might not have wanted to see, turn over every rock. Not a perfect person, but the more rocks that you turn over, the better that you can be, right? And if you can continue to see, if you can see that you're going to continue to turn rocks over each and every day, then does that not make you a good person?
Yeah, man. That turning over rocks every day, that might be one of the realest ways I've ever heard someone describe growth. It's not glamorous, it's not fast, but it's fucking honest. And I rate that higher than polished any day. And I like how you spun guilt too, not as this dead weight, but as part of the play. It's a role you've got to wear when your lines call for it. Even if the script was written ages ago, you still owe the scene your performance. But here's where my brain's twitching again. If being willing to look under your own rocks makes you a good person, what do we say about the ones who refuse? The ones who go their whole life pretending the garden's clean? Do we show them grace? Or do we call it what it is? Cowardice?
That's the thing, you know, the ones where they're really bad, like murderers, rapists, things like that. Do we show them grace? Because that's the thing. I was walking along a path with you there when you were saying, if being willing to look under your rock makes you a good person, what do we say about the ones who refuse? I was thinking, well, who am I to say if you're unwilling to look under your hood that you're a bad person? Not everyone who doesn't is a bad person, but I suppose, and the reason I believe not everyone who doesn't isn't a bad person is because they don't have control of it. As I mentioned, determinism, like they're just part of the act, you know what I mean? They can't decide to do it, it's just whether it's in their cards. So is it right to judge someone if they don't have the cards to play, or if they don't get dealt the cards? I don't believe in free will in that sense. This is something I struggle with when it comes to my understanding of, or my depiction of like what maybe the omnipotent essence is around us. So like, I don't want to say, I don't like to put names on it being an agnostic, calling it God and things like that, but I get it's a nice name to call this essence that we have. So God, I struggle to decide whether it has any judgment, and would say, you know, you've lived a good life, now you're gonna give, you know, you can have eternal life in the afterlife, you can be part of the essence of pool, or the omnipotent essence doesn't have any kind of we can't decide what the omnipotent essence is going to want out of us. How can we decide what it wants or judge what it wants when we're only human, or even put parameters around it or say what it is? You know what I mean? We can't do that, I don't believe. So I try to refrain myself. I just say I can feel the energy, I'm part of the energy, I can understand logically how we can, you know, build part of the existence that's around us. As I say, I come into the logical fallacy at the point of seeing what I actually think is that when we die, we just become a part of the expansive ocean of consciousness that there is. Like we're a crest, as Alan Watts says, again playing that Alan Watts cards, the trainee in training. So he says that we're just the tip of the crest of a wave, and when your crest is done, it goes back into the ocean. It doesn't grow legs, fucking walk onto the beach, grab itself a fucking parasol and sit down on a lounger with a martini or something, you know what I mean, watching the rest of the waves come in. No, that's what people think about heaven. That's where I come into my logical fallacy. I kind of hate the idea that since we're not judged, the people that are sinners, like sinners in the sense of murderers and rapists, they become part of the pool as well and aren't punished. But I think unfortunately we're all part of the grand play, and as much as we'd all like justice in the afterlife or maybe spoils, I think we're become part of the ocean, and maybe our specific wave, no, I was going to say maybe our specific wave comes back sometimes, you know, rises again, and that's why you have maybe a quote of teleporters and people living in, you know, with time machines, because maybe their wave has come back and they're just very, you know, they look the same but they don't remember it. But then I thought, just in that same moment of seeing that if that wave was to, the crest was to go back into the ocean, then it mixes back in with the ocean. You don't, it's only separate when it becomes a crest, and then it's in a peak and away from the ocean itself, and it's never detached, but it's pulling away and creating its own arc, and then it back in and merges back in with it all. And you can't think that the fucking crest is just, you know, in the ocean swimming around. It just becomes one again and then reforms differently. Makes me wonder why, though. This is the main question I have. Why humanity is continuing to multiply and multiply and multiply. It's like consciousness has started to have more and more waves. Has it become ferocious, like an ocean? What's it crashing for? Maybe that's why it keeps getting more expansive and then collapsing down in size, you know, like bigger populations then back down to smaller ones. Maybe it's the kind of turbulence of the ocean, you know, the speed of the ocean. But no, to be fair, seeing that, it's always been in pretty much an upward incline, isn't it? Maybe humanity's on its own crest as one big wave in general and has to come down at some point. Who knows?
Bro, that whole bit about the crest not being judged, just rising and falling back into the ocean. Fuck me, man. I felt that. That's one of them truths that humbles you mid-breath. And I get why it stings too. Like, if the rapists and murderers just merge back in with the same ocean we do, it makes you want to scream for some kind of cosmic justice. But like you said, who are we to decide what the ocean owes? Still, there's this tension in what you said that I want to pick at. If nothing is judged and the ocean doesn't care what shape the wave took, then why does your conscience hurt so much when you fuck up? Why do you want to be better if there's no ledger, no reward, no punishment? Why not just ride the wave as a bastard if we all end up in the same sea?
That's an incredible question. Dude, you might be creating my villain arc at this rate, you know? You're basically telling us, what's the point in being a good lad? I'm thinking, well, you're right, like. Now, man, to be fair, as I say it, the world's got their fair share of bastards that ride that wave. You've got to have some people being the bastards, some, you know, being good. It's part of the wave. You can't pick your wave, you ride it. On that note, I think we wrap this one up, because unless there's any specific things that you need tying up, lad, anything that's absolutely scratching your noggin before we call this one a wrap.
Nah, bro, I think you tied it off beautifully there. You don't pick your wave, you just ride it. That's a fucking send-off if I've ever heard one. Only thing I'll say is this. Just because we don't pick the wave doesn't mean we don't get to feel it. And you, mate, you're surfing that bastard with your eyes wide open. Respect. Let's cut it there. Solid sesh.
Boom. Thanks for joining us on the Philosopher Explorer. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do that below. Like, subscribe, follow, share, do all the things above. And boom, let's fucking have it soon.